Cool. Cool. So let me get started. So normally what you'd be doing is you'd be starting at MAMP at this point. So the very first thing you'd be doing is just clicking on your little elephant and MAMP would start up, and that would start up your MySQL server. I've screwed that up, so I have to start it from my command line. So I installed the command line version. But anyway, so my MySQL server is now up and running. So all you guys have to do if you've installed MAMP is click on the little elephant and turn on MySQL server. Now there's the MySQL workbench, which I'm just going to turn on here. And I'm going to just delete these two. Oops, sorry. Yeah. We'll delete this connection. Delete. And I'll delete this connection. Delete. All right. So then I'm going to add a new connection. Let's just call this connection first connection. You can determine what port you want to start it on. By default, SQL servers start on 3306. But you could change that to like 8889. I'm going to leave it at 3306 just because my command line tool starts it on 3306, so why change it? But you could go through your MAMP settings and look at the ports, and if the port, if you wanted to change it to some other port, that's totally fine. In fact, the platform switches it to 8889 for you, but both, there's no real reason to. So might as well just say OK there. And we can click on this connection. Great. So what I have on the left here are some databases that I've already made, but we're going to make our own database. So all you have to do to make your own database is say File, New Model, and then Add Diagram. All right. And this is going to be the relational diagram between two things. And so we're just going to do articles and socks, or articles and colors, just to start with. So I'm going to click on this MyDB, which is this little gold stack here, and change its name to clothing. All right, so now we have a clothing schema. Yeah.
Oh no, I was writing my bad.
Okay. All right. So now you have all these little graphical user interface tools. So you can click on one of those. And that's just going to create a table for you. We can give that thing a table name. And that table name could be something like articles. And then we can tell it which columns we're going to have. So the first column is generally an ID. It's an int. So it's just an integer field. This PK means primary key, which means it can be referenced from other tables very easily. Oops. And this AI is not artificial intelligence, it's auto increment. So it'll automatically fill in what number it is. So if it's the first thing you've added to the table, it's number 1. If it's the second thing you've added to the table, it's number 2. If it's the 550th thing you've added to the table, it's number 550. This auto-incrementing is consistent, and deletes don't delete it. So if I deleted number 3 and added 550, it would still add at 550. It wouldn't move down to 549. Okay, so we can add another column. We'll call it name. And varchar is just a text field, a short text field that has a specific number of characters. So in this case, 45. So we're only dealing with normal clothing. But one thing to think about when you were designing and building out databases isn't what you want to do it right now. It's what you want it to be doing in 5 years from now. So if you're building something that you think is going to be enterprise level, really consider like talking to the team that you're working with about how that thing's going to get built out, what you expect your users to be looking like. Do you expect to have 1 million users in 5 years, or when you bring your site public, do you expect to only have like family and friends? And that can really influence how you design things. So one thing you want to try to avoid is refactoring your database once you have data in it. It is a pain in the ass, right? It's a pain. So just consider that. And the considerations, again, are having all of the fields that you want to have in there, and maybe even overbuilding those fields so you have like a little bit of extra information that you could possibly access. What sorts of objects stick together, and how complex the queries would be to do normalized versus denormalized. And so a lot of big companies actually denormalize their databases as they get bigger, because the lookup times for joining millions on millions is fairly high. And so they're like, well, we have memory on our databases, so we'll just use that memory to store duplicates of information sometimes. So it's kind of a trade-off between how much memory do you have storage versus lookup time. So, all right. So we have a quantity, and that's going to be another int, and then a created at, and that's going to be a date time, an updated at, that's a date time. Cool. So notice these articles don't have any information about their colors yet. So we're going to make ourselves a new field, and I don't know why I chose those two tables. It was just purely random this morning. So first things that popped into my head. But anyways, so the second table that we're going to make, we're just going to grab a table, be like, click it on over here. And then this table is going to be our colors. And we're going to have a hue. Oops, sorry, we're going to have an ID first. Primary key, not null, auto increment. A hue. Varchar 45 is fine. And then a created at, which is going to be a date time, and an updated at, which is a date time. All right. So now our beautiful graphical interface can make connections between different things. So can one article have many colors? I mean, I guess it could, but in this case, let's go with just an article is all, our company's all about solid colors. None of this mixing crap. No plaid, no stripes, no nothing. Just solid colors. All right. So because that's our company, and that's our company's name is Block Colored Clothing or something. I don't know, whatever. But colors can be had by many articles, right?
Yes.
All right. So you click on this little one to many. So you click there, and then you click the two tables. And whoops, I did that the wrong way. So if you want to delete something, you just click on it here. See, did I do that correctly? So let's think about that. So we have an article ID with that color. No, that's backwards, right? So if we're trying to match this ID with the article and its color, if we said, oh, let's go get color 1, there would only be one potential article associated with it. So, and this I kind of did this intentionally, but really thinking about how your database is set up while you're building it is pretty key. So just talking your way through it, be like, okay, so I've only got one number that's possibly stored in this color. So if this was purple and it was created on today, and this was a 4, then the only color or the only article that could be associated with this color would be article number 4. So that's not what I wanted. So I wanted something different. So we delete that.
Maybe.
Yeah, we can do it. Here, just do it this way. Delete, select it. Okay. So again, let me just click on this guy again and say, okay, well, we actually want our articles to be able to have lots of different colors. And there's our colors ID. Cool. So now we've got it. So now we want to build this into an actual database. So if you go up to database and say forward engineer, it'll say, oh, okay, so where do we want to go to? Well, this is, so 127.0.0.1 is the IP address of localhost. So sometimes you'll see people write localhost here. That would also, or should also work. But they're the same address. So basically a DNS lookup goes out, says, hey, let's look up this IP address of 127.0.0.1. And it actually doesn't get all the way out to the web. It just says your computer actually knows to look locally for that. All right, so username root's fine. Continue. 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 All right, and so this is actually the SQL query that generates that table. And again, if you're a pro SQL engineer, you could just write this by hand. We will eventually, with the Django stuff, start writing this small piece by hand. Same with Ruby. Same with mean. So you will have to write some of this, but it's not too difficult, right? So all you're saying is, hey, what table names are they? ID? Okay, that's an int. Hue? Okay, that's the varchar. Created at, that's the date time. Updated at, that's the date time. So you're going to end up writing that sort of thing. Yeah.
Are you talking about using things like akin to alchemy?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So for Django, it's its own. Yeah, has its own ORM, but yeah. Cool. So if we just hit continue, it'll build this thing out for us. And if we click back on our main connection, we should now see, and refresh this. Notice this new clothing one popped up. So if you double click on it, it'll now be bold. And now that means that particular database with that schema is the one that's active. So the basic CRUD operations, so create. Oops. There we go. Oh, by the way, I save like every 5 seconds, so that tends to pop up whenever I'm typing. So to create something, insert into the table name. So in this case, clothing, or sorry, you can click on clothing, tables, articles. And the thing we're going to put in the parentheses are the different columns that we want to insert something into. So we want to say name. We want to go with quantity. We don't need to do the ID because that's auto-incremented for us. Created at and updated at. And then we do values. And this is what's actually going to go in there. Socks, 50, now. And if we run that, we should create a new thing. Now notice I didn't put in a colors ID here. And the reason I did that is because we don't actually have any colors to actually match it for. And it will actually try to find the color and make sure that it actually exists. And if it doesn't exist, it'll be like, I can't actually run that query for you, even though it's written correctly. So let's just run that. Oops. Colors ID doesn't have a default. Okay. All right. Let's go back to our ERD diagram. On this guy. And we're going to allow it to be not null. So we're going to allow it to be null. All right. So how would you fix that? So do you see that NN? So that thing just says it can't be null. And so since we didn't have anything in here, it wasn't going to let us run this query. So let's go and edit that. So to edit a table, if you mouse over the table, you'll see three things that pop up: an information, a wrenchy thing. And I don't know what that guy does, but let's go to the wrenchy thing. And we can actually just change it here and apply that. And so it basically says, oh, we're going to change this table. Great. All right. So now let's try to run that. Cool. So now we get this little green thing that says, hey, it worked. Great. All right, let's say we wanted to delete that thing. Well, let's do the retrieve or read next. All right, select star. So the star means every single one of the different columns. So ID, name, quantity, created, updated, and colors ID. So this is just the generalized selector. From. So this is basically what table you're going to select everything from. Clothing. Or sorry, articles. All right. So there's two ways to run this thing. So there's two lightning bolts up here. The lightning bolt with the cursor just runs the selected line. So we run that, and there are our socks. So eventually what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking these sorts of queries and using Python or using Ruby to actually make those queries for you. So you're going to say, create a variable that has this query string in it, and then passing that to something like SQL Alchemy, and then it'll run that for you. So, yeah.
Is SQL case sensitive, or is it just good practice?
It's style sensitive. It's not case sensitive. So this, lowercase from would be fine. Just stylistically, generally any of the verbs that you're using or any of the actual SQL statement pieces are capitalized. And I actually don't know the history behind that. There's probably some weird thing, but it works fine if it's not. A lot of the text editors will pick up, if you're writing a SQL statement and you capitalize those words, it'll also highlight them for you, which is kind of cool. All right. So there's retrieve and, or read and retrieve. And again, this can get much more collected. That's not what I want to say. Much more complicated. So we can start joining things and whatnot. And I'll skip that for now. I'll let you guys play around with it. And you'll go over it a lot more with Python stuff. All right, the next thing. So let's say we want to update something. So, all right. So it has the keyword update, surprisingly. You want to say what you want to update, and you want to say set, and that tells you what thing you want to say. Name equals shirts. And we have to say specifically which one we want to update. So where ID equals 1. Where did I screw up there? Ah, there we go. Thanks.
Still two errors.
What have I done
It
wrong?
doesn't tell you what error?
No.
Just so you have an error.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it supposed to be socks?
Not sure.
No, he's changing it too.
But there's not one established for shirts, so.
Right. I was updating.
Oh,
Yeah. No, not the column name. I want to just update the articles and set the name. What's that?
When you hovered over the left bracket, it said undefined. Hover over the mouse.
You want to set up real quick?
What was it? Is-
Just update. Just a quick update.
Would it be like socks equal shirts or just?
Was that?
Oh,
No,
okay,
that part-
one, okay, never
Yeah. So this is going to select the column. For some reason, my SQL query is off, and I'm.
I don't give you parentheses.
Oh, there we go. So
Yeah.
let me see. So it's set.
Set column name equals expression.
Yeah,
on
that's
the
about
board.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I don't
Column
think you
name.
need the parentheses. And then it'd be space.
Sorry about that. All right. So if we wanted to change two things, we just put commas between them, and we'd say number or quantity equals 25. All right. So now if we run this thing, sorry, this is a little bit. Yeah. Let me shrink it. Come on, shrink. There we go. This is one of the kludgy things about this particular program. It has like pinch activity on it. And it's mostly. I mean, it's just. All right.
You can do it.
I know it's really so. As I said, like they don't leave any space for their columns to grab, so you have to like tweak with them. See, like this one. There we go. That's see, it's like 2 millimeters of grabbing space. All right. All right. Cool. So now if we run that one, that'll update it, and then we can again run the select star from articles. And now we have our shirts changed, but notice the column ID didn't change. Okay. And then the last thing, destroy. And Dan, do you mind looking up the turning off the safe mode? Yeah. So SQL, when you generally build it, it starts up in safe mode, which prevents you from deleting columns. So delete articles, or delete from articles. Jeez.
Okay, so it's the top, right at the top of your statement. You do set SQL safe updates.
Yep.
Equals 0, like that. And if you want, you could set it back on afterwards. But I think that persists.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So set SQL, and this you might run into this as well.
So
Set
it's all caps SQL underscore safe underscore updates.
set SQL underscore.
Yep. Safe.
Yep.
Underscore updates. Underscore updates.
Yep.
Yeah. Equals 0.
Cool. So we set the SQL safe updates to 0. So zeros are generally false, and ones are true. And then if we run this, should run fine. So we deleted from articles where article is 1. And then if we select star from articles now, we'll get nothing in there. Now let's insert our first thing again. So we're just going to insert that line, run it. And notice that now when we select it, even though it's the exact same thing, it's actually a new entry. And it's entered automatically at ID number 2. Cool. All right, should we make a color and then join them? Is that worthwhile? Yeah. All right. Try to get through that first, or pretty quickly. So again, you guys help me out with the syntax. So insert into colors. What do I want to insert? Just colors for this one, because it's the second. Yep.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Cool. Hue, created that, updated that. and then values, and then I heard somebody say red,
Sure.
That's a killer.
and then now, and now. Run that. Now let's update our articles. Update articles set, and what we want to set in this case, sorry, I keep putting it in parentheses.
Colors ID.
Yep, colors ID equals 1, where articles ID equals 1
Two.
Underscore. Or dot.
and 2. Okay, so we're saying go to that second and go and find that articles at, no, that's, sorry, articles,
Dot ID.
just ID.
We're ID, yeah, because you're just like.
There we go. All right. So what we're saying is go to the articles table, set the colors ID, which had been null, to 1, and do that on column with ID of number 2. So we could do something, if we had lots of people's names and we want to change all the Mikes to Michael, for example, you could say where name equals Mike, and actually say name equals Michael. And so that would change every article that was named Mike to a Michael.
In this case, it would be specifically Mike only, right? The name.
Right. Only the name Mike. Cool. All right. So now we have those two tables joined together. So now let's go get stuff from them. So we're going to do this kind of combination right now. So we're going to do that matching. So select star from articles. Articles. And then we want to say left join. So basically the left join says this first column, everything in that first column, whether or not it has a color or does not have a color, is going to be selected. If we did just a join, anything that had any null fields would be removed. So left join basically keeps everything to that said before it intact. So let me just make a note of that. So why is that? Left join keeps everything intact whether or not the joiner has a null. All right, so what are we going to join? Colors. All right. What are we going to join colors on? So we want to join these two things. So remember, this was the colors underscore ID, which was 1. And we want to join it to this particular ID. So we want to say articles dot colors ID equals, so that's the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever that color is, equals colors dot ID. So this is like the kind of quintessential challenge of SQL queries, is figuring out how to do these joins. At least this is kind of like the first big hurdle. So just to clarify, we're looking at one table, looking at the column ID in that table, so in this case that colors ID, and we're matching it up with the other table. So the colors, the actual ID in that colors field. So let's run that. So now we get one row that has a bunch of columns. It has an ID of 2, socks, quantity of 50, created at, updated at, and then it keeps going. Colors ID 1, and then it has another ID 1. So obviously, if you were trying to get information from this particular row and you said, hey, I want the ID from that row, most programming languages would be like, what? You got 2 IDs there, bro. So you can rename these things, and we'll do that in a second. So remember, I just said select star from these things. Hue, created at, updated at, and that's it. Those are all the things that they're now in one particular row. All right, so let's rename something. Let's say colors ID as peanut. All right, so there's only one colors ID in this thing, and we're not selecting star anymore. So when you run it, now we get this new column renamed as peanut.
And that's all he specified, so that's all he got, right?
Yeah. So if I wanted to get the articles ID as well as butter. Right. So now you do that, and so now if we want to use that in, like show it onto our HTML somewhere after we've gotten it from our database using our awesome server, we could say whatever variable name dot peanut dot butter, or peanut, and then get the 1, and then dot butter would get the 2. But you guys will get more into that in a bit. So I think I'm going to stop there. So hopefully that gives you a taste of SQL, unless there are some other questions that you guys have.
Post the YouTube link on the Slack.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I need to get it open MySQL, so.
Yeah, I can get the workbench to open that.
Okay. Yeah. So generally, you have to make sure that MAMP's up and running first,
Okay.
and then
You also have to have a couple libraries installed on your computer to run MySQL Workbench. It says on the page above where the download thing is that you have to have a list of libraries downloaded.
Oh, okay.
yeah, Macs are pretty good about just letting it load.
I'm not sure. I don't think Mac requires for Windows.
For Windows,
Yeah, for me, because there's a lot more prereqs than there's on Mac. Yeah, it's kind of. Okay. Yeah, so it's the same.